My story of addiction started when I was about 18 years old, and I dabbled with methamphetamines for about a year and a half. I found out I was pregnant and I miscarried, and then found out I was pregnant about a month after that, as I was still in active drug addiction again, and I quit everything cold turkey. I wanted to change my life around, and I had 7 years sober. 2020 was when I relapsed for a 3 year, very dark, drug induced person. There was no way out, it felt like. And then I was stopped by the police with my 4-year-old daughter in the car, and they took her. I kind of had two options that night, as I was walking home barefoot from the police station because they only took me on a warrant because I had somebody really amazing take that whole charge for me. I had to walk home from the police station barefoot without my daughter. And I knew I had two options: to either go home and do the biggest shot of dope that I'd ever done and kill myself, because I knew that I didn't have any control over where my baby was. But I had two other kids there, and I didn't want them to wake up and find me dead. So I put everything into a box, and I went out into the backyard, and I was screaming so loud I just wanted to die, because I didn't think that I would ever have one of my kids taken from me. And I burnt everything, and I haven't looked back. I knew that it was time for me to fight like hell. I only lost her for 4 days because somehow it was the worst come down of my life, because I knew I had to push water because I knew they were going to drug test me. And I passed it miraculously, and they were like, oh, well, somebody else has claimed these drugs. Maybe she's not a drug addict. And they gave me back my daughter, but it was the 4 longest days of my life, and then they required a hair follicle test. And obviously I failed that. But they said because I was sober at that time, and they required treatment and all of these other things, they were going to let all of my kids stay with me. And I worked all the steps that they asked me to do. They said they've never seen somebody get off court services in under a year. I got off court services in under 9 months. My kids hadn't been to doctors in 3 years, and I scheduled all their appointments, their dentist appointments. I got them up to date on their shots, and I did this without it being court ordered. I took it in, and I showed the judge that I was different, that I was a changed person, that I wanted to better myself and my children. And they let us off court services. I've been off court services since January. So we're coming up on a solid 7 months of us being sober without having anybody watch us, to show and prove that I can do it myself as well. I had a lot on my plate, working 120 hours in a work week, while managing 4 kids at home. My husband was very distant from me. He was using behind my back. And I knew this, and I tried to justify it, like, okay, well, our sex life isn't the best usually, so whenever he uses, he comes home and he caters to me, and so I would justify it in my mind, but we slowly drifted more and more apart, and I wanted to connect with him. I wanted to reconnect, and he was the individual who was with me when I was 18. You know, I had been with him for so long that I couldn't not reconnect with him. And so I reconnected with drugs. And then as I had done that, I found out that he was cheating on me behind my back with his ex-wife. And it just sent me into a deeper, darker place of feeling like I had nobody, and that my worth was not what it was. So it just became easier to use every day. I went from using maybe twice a week to using daily. I went from just snorting it to shooting it up in a matter of 2 weeks, because I'm a all or nothing type of person. So I was in a really dark place, and I was for 3 years. I couldn't pull myself out of it. I felt like a failure, and like nothing I would do would ever make everything okay again. So I've persevered and I've pushed forward, and I've done it for myself, but I did it for my kids because they needed to have somebody strong for them, and they needed to have somebody there supporting them. I'm not proud of what my now 9-year-old had to do and play mommy to 2 younger siblings. You know, at age 6, she could cook spaghetti. Like, who does that to their kid? Like, because I was too lost in my world that making them dinner was the last thing on my mind. My kids witnessed severe abuse between me and my husband, knockout, dragouts. I remember him choking me out and my son on his back, you know, hitting him, telling him to leave me alone. And my kids suffer now. Being in fight or flight mode constantly. They always yell, they always fight, they're always on edge. And, you know, part of the growing step for me to know that I'm doing the right thing as a mother, is to make sure that I get them in therapy and that we address these things, because I can't just pretend like they didn't happen. They altered and damaged my children's frontal lobe, and it's now my job to try to repair it because I'm the one who broke it. And a mother should never break their child. I'm a firm believer now, that if you put in the work and you show improvement, the courts aren't going to just take them and put them in the system. You have to put in the work if you want, whether that be if you've lost your kids or it be in your active addiction. You have to put in the work to have a different life and a different change. And I try to put that work in every single day of my life. And it's not always for me. It's for those smiling faces I come home to make sure that they're not in a toxic cycle, and that they'll know that they have somebody they can depend on and lean on that is strong, so that they never feel lost or broken again. You create a lot of wreckage and you create a lot of pain, and you can't always fix that, especially when it's in something as small as a child who's trying to learn and develop how to live life. And I look at my kids every day as they go into their fight or flight mode. And as they struggle, she's now 5. She's having behavioral issues in school. She'll freak out. And she destroys classrooms because that's what she saw. She saw her mom and dad destroy their home. She watched whenever somebody didn't get their way, it turned into throwing your feet and hitting and stomping. And when you look at them and they're that broken because of you, it brings back everything, and it makes it hard to not go back out and use. It does. It doesn't mean that I've won every day yet. I fight every day to stay clean. Just because I feel like I've had these amazing victories doesn't mean that I'm not fighting for my life every day. And I think as people get further into their recovery, they forget that. One of the things that keeps me sober is going to my fellowship NA groups. I hadn't been to one in about a week and a half, and I've been struggling, and my job is drive from facility to facility. It was about 10:50 last night, and my meeting usually gets over at 11, and I was driving right by there, and I pulled in, and I stopped in, and I walk in, and it's a room full of people who know me, and they stopped at me, and they're like, "Brooklyn!" And it made me feel great. And I got to open up about some things with only 10 minutes left on the board. But that 10 minutes was everything to me. It takes a village and an army. And as people get further in their recovery, they start to forget those things and they just go on with their life. Okay, I have work. Okay, I have this. Okay, the kids got this. And they stop going to their fellowship and they stop following the steps. And that is the first way for you to fall back into addiction. And I look at my kids and I never want to put them through that again. No child should have to go through that. My 5-year-old struggles every day. We can't even pass a cop and she'll be like, Mommy, is your seatbelt on? Mommy, she's terrified of them. I never meant to impact that fear on such a small child. She didn't deserve that. And I just want to be better for them. I just want to be better for them.